Nobody on the Harmony's Edge understood why Ambassador David Reyes brought an orange cat to space. The diplomatic research vessel carried 37 crew members from 3 different species. Humans made up about a third. The insectoid Vrillani filled most science positions with their 4 arms and compound eyes. The crystalline Sorith handled navigation and command, their translucent bodies humming with internal light. Together, they explored the drifting reaches, a region of space no species had properly mapped. And in the middle of this important mission sat Mango, an 11-year-old tabby cat who spent 20 hours a day sleeping on warm surfaces. Chief Science Officer Tillix watched the creature with open confusion. Her wings folded against her back as she leaned closer to examine it. Mango lay sprawled across a navigation console, belly exposed, completely ignoring the alien studying him. Ambassador Reyes, Tillix said, her voice clicking between words, I must ask again. What function does this animal serve? David looked up from his datapad and smiled. He had answered this question many times over the past 2 weeks. He's my companion, Tillix. Cats have lived alongside humans for thousands of years. Yes, but for what purpose? Tillix pressed. Does it hunt? Does it guard? Does it perform labor? He catches the occasional bug. Mostly he just exists nearby. Tillix's compound eyes shifted through several colors, which David had learned meant frustration. You feed this creature, clean its waste, provide it shelter, and carry it across the galaxy. In return, it does nothing. That's about right. This is very strange behavior, Ambassador. Commander Orin approached, his crystalline form catching the bridge lights and scattering them into tiny rainbows. The Sora stood nearly 8 feet tall and carried himself with the careful dignity of his rank. He looked down at Mango with something close to pity. My people have studied human culture extensively, Orin said, his voice resonating like struck glass. We believe the attachment to these creatures was exaggerated in your media. Seeing it firsthand is illuminating. How so? David asked. You are a capable species. You survived a death world, developed technology, reached the stars. Yet you devote significant resources to animals that offer nothing in return. It suggests a sentimentality that may be a weakness. David scratched Mango behind the ears. The cat began purring, a rumbling sound that made Tillix step back in alarm. Is it broken? She asked. No, he's happy. That's purring. It sounds like a malfunctioning engine. Mango opened one eye, looked at Tillix with complete disinterest, and went back to sleep. David had grown used to these conversations. The aliens respected humanity for many things. Humans were tough, adaptable, creative, and surprisingly good at making friends across species barriers. But the cat thing baffled them. Every species in the galactic community kept animals for specific purposes. Work animals, food animals, guard animals. The idea of keeping a creature purely for companionship, especially one as demanding and ungrateful as a cat, made no sense to them. What David could not explain, because he barely understood it himself, was the depth of the bond. Mango had been with him through a divorce, 2 career changes, and the death of his father. The cat never offered comfort in any obvious way. He simply existed nearby, warm and alive and present, and somehow that was enough. The ship's communication system chimed. A young human officer named Patel looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving a distress signal. Human mining colony on RV-7, about 6 hours from our position. Commander Orin moved to the main display. Details, that's the strange part, Commander. The signal is automated. No voice communication. No response to our hails. The colony just stopped talking 3 days ago. David felt a chill run through him. Mining colonies were tough places filled with tough people. They did not go silent without reason. Set a course, Orin commanded. We will investigate. As the ship changed direction, Mango suddenly sat up. His ears rotated forward. His eyes, usually half closed with boredom, went wide and alert. He stared at a corner of the bridge where nothing visible existed. What's wrong with it now? Tillix asked. David watched his cat carefully. In 11 years, he had learned to read Mango's moods. Lazy, hungry, annoyed, demanding. Those were the usual ones. This was different. This was the look Mango got when he spotted a bird through a window. Focused, intense, predatory, but there was nothing there. Just empty air and metal walls. Probably nothing, David said, though he did not believe it. Cats sometimes see things we don't. Tillix made a clicking sound that translated roughly to doubt. Another reason they are useless. Reacting to invisible threats helps no one. Mango held his stare for another long moment. Then he yawned, stretched, and curled back into a ball on the warm console. 6 hours later, they would reach the colony. 6 hours later, they would discover that Mango had been right to stare. Something was waiting for them. Something that had been hunting in the darkness of space for a very long time. And it was hungry. The mining colony looked wrong from the moment they landed. Lights still flickered in the corridors. Machines still hummed. Air recyclers pushed breathable atmosphere through the facility. Everything worked exactly as it should, except for one detail. Every human was gone. David walked through the main hub with the away team, Mango's travel carrier in his hand. The cat pressed against the mesh window, unusually quiet. Commander Orin led the group, his crystalline body casting strange shadows. Tillix followed with scanning equipment. Two human security officers, Patel and Russo, kept their weapons ready. 53 registered workers, Patel said, checking her data pad. No Voldius. No signs of evacuation. They just vanished. Russo pointed at a table in the mess hall. Food still out. Half-eaten. Whatever happened, it happened fast. Tillix ran her scanner over the walls. Her wings twitched. I am detecting unusual biological residue. Unknown composition. It does not match any species in our database. Commander Orin stopped moving. The light inside his body pulsed in a pattern David had never seen before. When the Sorith spoke, his voice carried something new: fear. I am sensing a frequency, Orin said slowly. Something alive. Something nearby. I cannot identify it, but my people have stories about this feeling. What kind of stories? David asked. Orin did not answer immediately. He moved to a wall and ran his crystalline fingers over deep gouges in the metal. The scratches cut through reinforced steel like it was paper. We need to find the security footage, Orin said. They found it in the control room. Patel activated the playback, and they watched the colony's final hours unfold on the screen. T first. Everything seemed normal. Workers moved through corridors. Engineers checked equipment. People ate and talked and laughed. Then the lights flickered in Sector 7. A shadow moved where no shadow should exist. Something fast. Something dark. The footage distorted whenever it appeared, turning to static and strange patterns that a worker walked down a corridor alone. The shadow detached from the wall behind her. She never even turned around. One moment she was there. The next, she was being dragged into the darkness without time to scream. The pattern repeated. One by one, the workers disappeared. Some ran. Some fought. None survived. The creature moved through the colony like smoke, picking them off with terrible patience. The final footage showed the last 3 survivors barricading themselves in the control room. The door bent inward. Metal screamed. Then static. Tillix's wings pressed flat against her body. What is that thing? Orin's light had dimmed to almost nothing. A moss stalker. My people thought they were extinct. Stories say they hunted the first Sorith who traveled the stars. They destroyed entire colonies before we learned to flee from the worlds they claimed. How do we kill it? Russo asked, gripping his weapon tighter. You do not. The moss stalker is the apex predator of the Outer Rim. It phases through solid matter. It generates fields that disrupt technology. It can see in complete darkness and move without sound. Every species that has encountered one has only one piece of advice. What? Run. A low growl filled the room. Everyone turned to look at Mango's carrier. The cat had pressed himself against the mesh, his fur standing on end. His eyes were fully dilated, black circles with the thinnest ring of orange around them. He stared at a ventilation shaft in the ceiling. Your animal is malfunctioning again, Tillix said nervously. David set down the carrier and opened it. Mango did not bolt for freedom as he usually did. Instead, he crouched low, his body tense, his tail rigid. The growl continued, deep and constant. "He sees something," David whispered. "There is nothing there," Oren said as a piece of dust drifted down from the ventilation shaft. Just a tiny speck floating in the recycled air. Then the shaft exploded outward, and something massive and dark dropped into the room. David caught only glimpses. 8 limbs, scales that seemed to drink the light, a head that shifted and blurred, never quite solid, eyes like holes cut into reality itself. The Moss Stalker had found them, and it was done waiting. The Moss Stalker struck before anyone could react. One moment, it crouched in the center of the room. The next, it was across the space, claws tearing through the air where Russo had been standing. The security officer threw himself sideways, but not fast enough. 3 deep gashes opened across his shoulder, spraying blood across the wall. Patel fired her weapon. The energy blast passed through empty air. The creature had already moved, vanishing into the shadows like it had never existed. "Fall back," Oren commanded. They ran. Through corridors that suddenly felt too dark, too narrow, too full of places for something to hide. Tillix carried the injured Russo, her 4 arms making the task easier. David grabbed Mango's carrier but found it empty. "The cat got out," he shouted. "Leave it," Oren called back. "We cannot slow down." David wanted to argue, but a screech of tearing metal behind them ended the discussion. They kept running. The shuttle bay was 2 levels up. They made it to a stairwell before the lights died. Emergency red illumination kicked in, casting everything in bloody shadows. Perfect hunting ground for a creature born in darkness. "It's hurting us," Patel said, her voice tight. "Every time we try for a direct route, something blocks us." She was right. Corridors they needed were suddenly filled with debris. Doors that should open stayed sealed. The Moss Stalker was not just hunting them. It was playing with them. That a blur of darkness passed overhead. Tillix screamed as claws raked across her wing, tearing the delicate membrane. She dropped Russo, and Oren caught him before he hit the ground. Patel fired again and again. Each shot hit nothing but air. "I can sense it," Oren said, his light pulsing erratically, but only for moments. "It phases between our reality and somewhere else. When it attacks, it becomes solid, but only for an instant. Then we shoot it in that instant," Patel said. "Can you track something that moves faster than your eyes can follow?" Nobody answered. They reached a junction. 3 corridors branched out. The shuttle bay lay down the left path. Before they could move, the Moss Stalker materialized at the left corridor's entrance. Its head tilted, studying them, deciding which one to take next. Then something orange streaked across the floor. Mango moved through the shadows like he belonged there. His body was low, almost flat against the ground. His ears pressed back. His eyes fully black with dilated pupils, fixed on the massive predator blocking their path. "What is the animal doing?" Tillix whispered. David watched his cat and felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had seen Mango hunt before. Birds, mice, once a snake that got into the house. The cat always looked the same way. Focused, patient, absolutely certain. Right now, Mango looked at the Moss Stalker like it was just a very large mouse. The creature noticed the cat. Its head swiveled, and for a moment, it seemed confused. This tiny thing was not running, not hiding. It was approaching. Mango circled left. The Moss Stalker tracked him, turning its body slightly. Mango circled right. The creature turned again. "He's measuring it," David breathed, finding its patterns. "That is insane," Oren said. "It will kill your pet in a single strike." "Maybe, but cats don't think about that. They only think about the hunt." Mango darted forward. The Moss Stalker lunged, claws sweeping through the space where the cat should have been. But Mango was already gone, moving to a new position, forcing the predator to turn again. The creature hissed, a sound like tearing metal. This was wrong. This was not how prey behaved. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey died. This small thing did none of those things. David grabbed the others and pulled them toward the left corridor. "Move. Now." While it's distracted, they ran for the shuttle bay. Behind them, David heard his cat scream. Not a meow, not a yowl, a primal sound that reached back through millions of years of evolution. The hunting cry of a predator. The game had changed. The shuttle bay doors were jammed. Of course they were. Patel worked on the override panel while Oren tended to Russo's wounds. Tillix held her torn wing against her body, compound eyes scanning the darkness for movement. David stood at the entrance, listening. The sounds coming from deeper in the colony made no sense. Metal tearing, heavy impacts. A creature that had killed 53 humans without a sound was now making noise. A lot of it was happening back there. Tillix asked. David did not answer. He was too busy praying that an 11-year-old cat had not just gotten himself killed saving their lives. Then Mango appeared. He walked out of the darkness like nothing unusual had occurred. His fur was ruffled. A small cut on his ear dripped blood. But his eyes still held that terrible focus, and his body moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible for a creature who spent most of his time sleeping on furniture. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows, the Moss Stalker followed. The galactic apex predator moved differently now. Its confidence was gone. It circled wide around the small orange cat, keeping distance, studying. One of its 8 legs dragged slightly, dark fluid leaking from a wound near the joint. The cat injured it. Oren said, disbelief filling his voice. That is not possible. David watched the two predators face each other in the corridor. The size difference was absurd. The Moss Stalker stood 12 feet tall, a nightmare of blades and darkness and hunger. Mango weighed 14 pounds and had a torn ear from fighting a raccoon 6 years ago. But size, David realized, meant nothing here. Mango did not see a monster. He saw a challenger, something that had entered his territory, threatened his human, and now needed to be dealt with. The cat's brain did not calculate odds or measure threats. It simply reacted on instinct refined over 40 million years of evolution. The Moss Stalker lunged. Mango flowed sideways like water, avoiding claws that could cut through steel. The creature struck again. Mango was already somewhere else, circling, always circling, forcing the larger predator to waste energy turning and tracking. It cannot catch him, Tillix whispered. The creature phases through matter and moves faster than sight, and it cannot catch a small furry animal. Cats have reaction times of about 20 milliseconds, David said softly. The fastest reflexes of any mammal on Earth. They can rotate their spine in midair to land on their feet. They can track movement humans cannot even see. The Moss Stalker roared and lashed out with 4 limbs at once, covering every angle of attack. Mango leaped straight up, twisted in the air, and raked his claws across the creature's sensory node. The monster recoiled, shaking its head, dark blood spraying from the wound. On Earth, cats hunt things that can kill them, David continued. Snakes, scorpions, creatures with venom and size advantages. They do it anyway. They don't understand fear the way we do. They only understand the hunt. Mango landed and immediately circled again. His movements were shorter now, more aggressive. He was not just defending anymore. He was pressing an attack. The Moss Stalker tried to phase into shadow, to disappear and strike from a new angle. But the moment it began to fade, Mango pounced at its position. Claws found flesh before the creature fully vanished, tearing another wound, disrupting its escape. It cannot run, Oren said. The cat is not letting it disengage. The shuttle doors finally opened with a hiss. Patel called out that they could escape. But nobody moved. They watched the impossible battle unfold, witnessed an orange tabby cat refuse to let a galactic nightmare flee from him. The Moss Stalker was bleeding from 6 different wounds now. Its movements grew sluggish. Its attempts to phase became weaker. The interference field that disrupted technology flickered and died. For the first time in countless millennia, the apex predator of the Outer Rim felt something it had never experienced before. Fear. And Mango, licking blood from his paw, was just getting started. The Moss Stalker abandoned all strategy and attacked with pure rage. IT swept its claws in wide arcs, tore chunks from walls, and screamed in frequencies that made the humans clutch their ears. The creature that had hunted with silent patience for centuries now thrashed, like a wounded animal, desperate to destroy the small orange thing that would not stop hurting it. Mango took a hit that a claw caught his side and sent him tumbling across the floor, leaving a smear of blood on the metal. The cat lay still for 3 heartbeats. David started forward, ready to throw himself between his pet and the monster. Then Mango stood up. His breathing had changed. Short, sharp bursts. His body lowered even further, muscles coiled like springs. Blood matted his fur, but his eyes remained fixed on the moss stalker with absolute focus. "You should be running," Tillich said. "Any sane creature would flee from that injury." "Cats don't run," David replied. "Not when they've committed to a hunt. They finish it or die trying." The moss stalker sensed weakness and charged. Mango dodged, but slower this time. The creature pressed its advantage, striking again and again, forcing the cat to give ground. But David noticed something the others did not. Mango was not retreating randomly. He was moving toward a specific location. A section of wall where power conduits ran close to the surface, exposed by the earlier damage. "He's planning something," David breathed. The cat led the monster in a careful spiral, taking hits he could have avoided, letting the creature think it was winning. Each step brought them closer to the conduits. Each dodge positioned the moss stalker exactly where Mango wanted it. Tillix's compound eyes widened. "He is hurting the predator. Like prey." Orin's crystal body pulsed with amazement. An animal with no technology, no weapons, no size advantage, is outthinking a creature that has hunted sapient species for millennia. The moss stalker lunged one final time, putting all its remaining strength into a killing blow. Mango did not dodge. He dropped flat as the claws passed over him, then exploded upward with every ounce of power his small body possessed. He hit the creature's throat. His claws, small and seemingly harmless, found the vulnerable nerve cluster beneath the monster's jaw. The same cluster that controlled the moss stalker's ability to phase between realities. The same cluster that no larger creature could ever reach because the monster never let anything get that close. Mango locked on and bit down. The moss stalker convulsed. Its interference field died completely. Its phasing ability failed. For the first time in the battle, its entire form became solid and visible. A nightmare made real, massive and terrible and covered in wounds from an orange tabby cat. The creature fell that T hit the ground with a sound like a collapsing building. Its limbs twitched. Dark fluid pooled beneath its body. The eyes, those horrible holes in reality, slowly dimmed and went dark. Mango stood on its corpse. He was bleeding from multiple wounds. His fur was matted with blood, both his own and the monster's. One of his legs seemed to favor his weight, but he held his position on top of the apex predator, licking his paw clean, completely indifferent to the impossible thing he had just done. David walked forward slowly. The others followed, none of them quite believing what they had witnessed. "Mango," David said softly. "Come here, buddy." The cat looked at his human, yawned, and hopped down from the corpse. He walked over to David and rubbed against his legs. Purring, the creature that had terrorized 100 worlds lay dead on a mining colony floor, killed by a house pet. Patel started laughing. She could not stop. The sound was half hysteria, half genuine disbelief. "What the hell?" she managed between breaths. "Did we just watch?" David picked up his cat and held him close, feeling the purr vibrate against his chest. 40 million years of evolution, he said quietly. "That's what we watched." 3 days after the battle, Mango received a promotion. The ceremony took place on the bridge of the Harmony's Edge. Commander Orin presided, his crystalline form glowing brighter than David had ever seen. Tillix stood at attention, her damaged wing bandaged but healing. The entire crew, human and alien alike, packed the room to witness history. Mango slept through most of it. He lay curled on his favorite navigation console, occasionally opening one eye when someone spoke too loudly. The small metal they pinned to his collar annoyed him, and he kept pawing at it until David removed the pin and simply hung the ribbon loosely around his neck. "By the authority of the Joint Diplomatic Council," Orin announced, "the creature known as Mango is hereby granted official crew status. His title will be Chief Threat Assessment Officer." His duties will include identifying and neutralizing dangers that escape conventional detection. A young Vrlani named Kiris leaned close to David. Does the cat understand what is happening? Not even slightly, David admitted. Then why do this? David watched his cat yawn and stretch across the warm console. Because he earned it. And because every species needs to understand what humans bring with us when we travel the stars. After the ceremony, Tillix approached David in the observation lounge. Her compound eyes shifted through colors he was learning to read. This pattern meant serious thought. I have been researching Earth felines, she said. Your planet's databases contain extensive information. Find anything interesting. Everything about them is interesting. Tillix's wings rustled. They hunt for sport, not just food. They can see in near total darkness. Their reflexes exceed every other Earth mammal. They possess retractable claws that stay sharp their entire lives. She paused, and her eyes shifted to a new color. Fear. Your species domesticated these creatures 10,000 years ago. You brought them into your homes. You sleep beside them. You allow them near your offspring. David smiled. They're pretty cuddly when they want to be. That is not comforting, Ambassador. Commander Oren joined them, his light pulsing in what David recognized as deep contemplation. My people will want to study feline biology. The Mosstalker was legend among the Soreth, a terror from our earliest history. Colonies died because we could not fight them, and a house cat killed one in single combat, David said. Yes, this changes everything we believed about threat assessment, about Earth, about humanity. Oren turned his crystal gaze toward where Mango now batted at a loose wire. What other creatures do you keep as companions? Dogs, horses, ferrets. Some people keep snakes and spiders. Oren's light flickered. Snakes and spiders. As pets. In their homes. For fun. The commander said nothing for a long moment. Then he walked away, muttering something in his native language that the translator did not catch. Kiris found David again before dinner. The young Vrlani seemed nervous, her wings never quite settling. Ambassador, I have a question. Go ahead. Are all Earth cats capable of what Mango did? David considered the question carefully. Every house cat carries the same instincts, the same reflexes, the same hunting drive. Most never need to use them. They live comfortable lives catching toys and sleeping in sunbeams. But if they needed to, then yes. Every single one of them is a killer wrapped in soft fur. They just usually don't have a reason to prove it. Kiris looked across the room at Mango, who had found a patch of artificial sunlight from the observation window and sprawled in it with his belly exposed. He looks so harmless, she said. That's part of what makes them dangerous. Nobody expects it. That evening, David sat in his quarters with Mango purring in his lap. The cat's wounds had been treated, and the ship's medical officer predicted a full recovery. Already, Mango acted like nothing unusual had happened. Like killing a galactic apex predator was just another day. David scratched behind his ears. You know you saved all of us, right? Mango purred louder, but gave no indication of understanding. Probably for the best that you don't know. Wouldn't want to go into your head. The cat stood, stretched, walked across the room, and deliberately knocked a stylus off David's desk. He watched it fall, then walked away without looking back. Some things never change, but somewhere in the galaxy, word was spreading. The death worlds of the Outer Rim had spawned nightmares that hunted the stars. And Earth, that seemingly unremarkable planet in an unremarkable system, had created something to hunt them right back. Not soldiers. Not weapons. Not ships. Cats. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.